the Kingdom Perspective Radio Call-In Talk Show. Hey, it's your boy Pastor Rod Hickman. As always, got my lovely co-host, Lady Christy Hickman, here with me, and we are back for another episode of Kingdom Perspective. Excuse me. Listen, Kingdom Perspective is a outreach ministry of Redeeming the Time Gospel Ministry Church here in the metropolitan city of Covington, Tennessee. And we're happily partnered with U.S. Country 51 93.5 FM. Listen, we're so glad to be here. Pray that your week has been good. Pray that everything has been going well for you. Pray that the hand of the Lord has yet been shown in your life. Listen, tell a neighbor, tell a friend that it's now time for the Kingdom Perspective Call-In Talk Show. You can actually call in. We want to hear your comments. You can call us in. You can call in at 901-475-9355. Maybe you say your friends or family don't live in this area. Tell them to go online, us51country.com, and click the live stream button, and then they can actually listen to us live. But again, we're just so great to be here today, joined in studio, and I know she ain't gonna show up. I actually have my baby in here, the one who keeps me going to the gun range when I do go, the one that keeps me going. But my baby, my bug, Alila. Say hey, baby. Hi. Okay, yeah, she back there eating. But whole family here today. Listen, we're gonna have a great show on today, and we're hoping to hear from you out there in Radio Land, or if you're out there on the internet. Again, you now have time to tag somebody. Let them know, hey, Kingdom Perspective is on. Remember, if you want to call in, it's 901-475-9355. So today's topic that we're going to actually talk about it. We know now the season for graduation, and so we do want to take some time and give a heartfelt congratulations to all of those that are graduating this year, all the seniors that have graduated on this year, and with special great deference to my own son, my namesake, Roderick Hickman. So proud of him, graduating him and the other Covington Chargers class of 21. We had to dip out of there. They were at the baccalaureate service, but we had to dip out of there. But I'm definitely so proud of him. It was just good to watch him grow, and from the time he went to preschool, up until the time now he's getting ready to walk across the stage as a man. And then we're so glad that on Wednesday, he's actually going to enlist to join the Air National Guard. So we're definitely proud of him. And look, that's some of the things we want to talk about on today about our graduates. And we were hoping to have youth that could be actually in here today so we can actually get their perspective. But maybe you say, hey, I have a young person that wants to call in, and so have them sit down with you and they can follow along with us as we go on, because we do want to hear their perspective. And so I have a perspective as I was thinking about what we would talk about on today. I came up with the concept, and y'all will find out I love having a flair. I love for my titles and my thoughts to have a really good flair. And so I came up with the thought process on today for our graduates. I'm a big kid now. Yeah, I'm a big kid now. And why did I choose that? Because what we have to understand is, as our young people now get ready to start moving out into adulthood, a lot of them, if we all, those of us that have already gone through that process, can you remember the pressure that you went through when you got out on your own? Can you remember that pressure of, man, I'm finna be grown, I'm finna have to do this, I'm finna have to do that? I know personally, I was getting ready to go to basic training, so I was crying like, man, what have I gotten myself into? I can just remember just kind of being a bit overwhelmed. And I was like, man, good grief, this is for the birds. And so just kind of wanted to talk to our young people on today, and even want to talk to some of us out there that may be able to provide something, some advice that might be able to help them along the way in their transition. Of course, as you know, we always talk from biblical perspectives. So let's get started. So one of the scripture texts that I want to take today is found in Luke chapter 2. And when you read about it, this is the particular passage that talks about how when Jesus was there and they went to Jerusalem for the time of worship. and say how when there was time to leave, he stayed around, and he was found talking there with the doctors and going back and forth and sharing with them and things of that nature. And the Bible lets us know that when his parents finally got connected back with them, they said, "Man, what are you doing? You scared us half to death." And he said, "I got to be about my father's business." But it was after that where the Bible talks about how he grew in wisdom and in stature. Wisdom and in stature. And that's kind of what I want to focus on. What does that mean? When you think of growing in wisdom and stature. And again, that's what we want. Those of you out there on the call-in line, 901-475-9355. When you hear the word about wisdom and stature, what does that mean to you? And how is that something that we can actually pass on to our young people that are going out there? Are we, as parents, preparing our children for the future? Are we doing the things to help our children grow in wisdom and in stature? Again, we want to hear you, 901-475-9355. So with that being said, let's talk about what we see in society on today, and feel free to jump in whenever. But some of the stuff that we see going on in society. Well, let me back up. Let's talk about wisdom. What wisdom really is. Wisdom is not just book knowledge, and I think every one of us that are adults now can say that we may have had some head knowledge. We may have known some stuff, thought we knew some stuff, and as we were in our parents' home or whoever it was that you grew up with, you thought you were grown and you thought you were smarter than the average bear. Thought that you were smarter than the person that was your caregiver, and you may have been academically smarter, but life has a whole different test that it gives to you. It has a whole different test that if you're not careful, that book knowledge will get you messed up. That book knowledge or just that academia will cause you to not be able to really and truly be able to function in the world. What do you think?
I think that when they begin to face tests and trials, those are the things that wisdom will come in and help them to be able to go through them.
That's right. That's right.
And books are not going to always tell you that experience is, and the wisdom is built by the parents and the peers.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and that's the thing. Wisdom. So wisdom can help you avoid a lot of shortcomings. Just having book sense, or what we like to call, I won't say common sense, but where we think we're smarter than the average bear. And I know a lot of the times in the heads, hearts, and mind of our young people, they have the feeling like, well, it won't be me, right? It can't happen to me. It ain't gonna happen to me. I'm good, because I'm better than that. That's not wisdom. Right? How many times have we done that? Those of us that are older, how many times have we said, "Oh, that can't be me," and then you mess around and find that that's you. You find yourself in some situations and some circumstances because you did not apply wisdom. Right? So wisdom is key, and the Bible is clear. Especially, we have a whole book of Proverbs that talks about wisdom, and my wife can attest. I get up in the mornings and I just listen to it. I just let the Proverbs just kind of play, because if you just take some time to listen to what they're talking about, you'll see that it can help you avoid a lot of trouble. It talks about, don't pair up with folk, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it talks about how you shouldn't go and pair up with folk whose feet are quick to shed blood. Talks about, and again, it's, yeah, your feet are quick to run to mischief. There's one that I really, really like, and it talks about how not to spend your money on a harlot. And you probably say, well, why'd you bring that up? Well, if you think about it, look at what happens in society today. How many people spend money foolishly, right? They spend money, trying to do this and trying to do that. it's not something that's beneficial. And the proverb tells you about it. It tells you that it's fleeting. All these things that we're chasing are fleeting. And so while it's key, and especially for our graduates, while yes, you may have had a 4.0 or better than a 4.0, you also need to take wisdom along with you. And wisdom, one of the key things of wisdom is knowing when to speak and when to hear, knowing when to act and when to be still. And so those are some of the things that wisdom will do, and it will help you avoid a lot of pitfalls in life. All right. So that's what we're talking about, wisdom and stature. Again, let us hear what you have to say, or chime in the chat. 901-475-9355. Let's move on. So the next scripture we'll talk about here is in 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And this is one that we all have read and heard, especially those of us that are in church when it comes to youth day at the church. And as 1 Corinthians 13:11 says, when I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child, and I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Put away childish things. So as we are trying to encourage our graduates that are actually about to really and truly enter the workforce on today, what is it that we can help our children understand that transition, right? Because that's a transition. Let us not just think that, that's something that comes overnight. It is a transition. You have to transition from childhood to adulthood. Absolutely. And that's where we as parents and we as a community, and notice when I say a community, I'm saying that because how many know in the days of old, in the old time way, it took a community to raise a child. What's the analogy? It takes a village to raise a child. And that's true. And I get it. And I don't really like it now. But this new school stuff says, well, you can't say nothing to my child. If my child do something, you tell me. And I tell my child, okay, well, I'm sorry. I was just trying to tell your child, get from out in front of that bus. But okay, if you don't want me to say nothing to him, I won't say anything to him. But again, that's counterproductive. That's not helping that child. That's not helping them in their transition from being a child to adulthood. And so what are some of the things that we feel children should know? What are some of the things that we as parents should be teaching our children to help them make that transition? I can tell you one thing, especially being dealing with finances, I can tell you a budget is one of the first things you need to teach. A budget is the first thing, how to manage money. How does money work? But here we go again. If the parents don't know, and if the parents don't want anyone else to say, well, hey, man, teach my child, realizing that someone teaching your child doesn't take away from who you are as a parent, but what it does, it builds your child's base. But again, it goes back to community, that being that community. So when we start thinking about money, that's right. When we start thinking about money and how to manage money, a lot of things that happen, again, especially to us in my generation, you didn't know. Man, we got them credit cards and was like, charge. Got them checks, start writing. Just start writing them checks. Not realizing, man, you got to have some money in the bank for that. Oh, for real? That ain't how this works. But again, if you don't have that good transition, if you don't have that where we are teaching our children how to transition from childhood to adulthood, if I could just say it how I want to say it, to having accountability, then guess what? Our babies are going to continue to be grown children. They'll never begin to be accountable for the things that they need to have, for the things that they need to do. And even more so, how about this? They'll be grown and they'll make adult decisions, but the responsibility will fall on someone else. The responsibility will fall on someone else. And that's one of the key things why, this scripture is not just for the children. While yes, it is for the children, but it's also for the parents. It's also for the community. And so I guess here's the question. You probably say, where's the question? The question is, why have we as a community stopped communal growth? Why have we as a community, why have we stopped community parenting? Now, again, I realize everything is not done right. Everything they did in the old school was not done right. We know that. But a lot of the stuff that was done in good with good intentions. And so, how can we get back to a place where we as a community, where it's all right for you to say something to my child if you see them going down the way? It's okay for you to pour into my child, and I not take offense to it. What do we have to do in order to get back to that? What do you think?
I think if I just could talk about myself, coming up in a single family home and just being raised by my mom, there were some things that, because of the absence of my father, there were some things that I missed. And I think that if we could take on that mindset that, look back over your life and see the areas of your life where you may have made some bad decisions because dad wasn't there to tell you, or mom wasn't there to tell you, or it was not instilled in you as a child. If you take on that mindset when dealing with somebody else's child, or even so much so that I would want somebody to reach out and tell my daughter, young lady, respect yourself. We have to be willing to allow that, because they may listen to somebody else more so than they would me.
That's true.
So that's what I think. I just think that we have to take that mindset. What did I miss that I don't want my child to miss, or I don't want this young man that's coming on my job to miss, or this young lady that's coming on my job 18 years old to miss.
That's right.
So I think when we think about that, I think another thing that you was talking about earlier, we're not teaching our children that integrity matters. I think that we're not telling them that your word means something. And one thing that I shared with my son was that, don't just let people tell you no. Be willing to, stand up for yourself and negotiate with people and talk to people. And you'll be surprised at how God will move on your behalf when you take that leap of faith and just say, well, sir or ma'am, how about this? Or just being willing to, think about yourself and the future that's before you.
That's right. That's right. Oh, that's powerful. Integrity is a must. But let me ask this question. Are you able to teach integrity if you don't know how to walk in integrity? Can you really teach integrity if you don't know how to walk in integrity? And again, this is not to throw any rocks at anyone, but again, from a kingdom perspective, if we don't change what we're doing now,
right,
we are going to continue to get the same results that we're getting now. We're going to continue to see failed and broken homes. We're going to continue to see children out of wedlock, teen pregnancy. And again, while we love the baby, we hate the sin. I get it. How do we get to a point where that does not happen in the first place? How do we get to that point? And these are the kind of things that we have to talk about. Why is that happening? And we can't just say, oh, well, it's because these kids are just going to do what they're going to do. No, that's not true. That's a cop-out. What happens is we have got to, as parents, be more engaged in building our children and making sure that we're speaking into their life, not just saying, my baby going to be a lawyer, and we're not, and little Johnny can't even read.
I think another thing is that, the Bible talks about how life and death lie in the power of the tongue. And you said something about how can they know integrity, or how can you teach integrity? Well, for me, it's what you live before your kids.
That's right.
And another thing is, reason why it's not happening is because people don't have that mothering nature anymore, or that fathering nature. It didn't matter that Mr. Johnny wanted to show my son how to cut grass because I was a single parent.
That's right.
And it was okay.
That's right.
But nowadays, we've taken down to that for fear of what people will say, how they respond, or just not knowing.
That's right. That's right. And that's critical there. But then that goes right back to community.
Right.
That's like I think about our neighbor, great George Howard. Love that fellow so much. But how he would say, hey, let me take him and show him how to cut some grass. Let me take him with me and do this, that, and the other. Let me spend some time with him. And you know what? We let him go. Why? Because we knew Deacon Holland. We know Deacon Holland is a man of honor. We know he's a man of integrity. And we know that he's not going to go and teach something that goes contrary to what it is that we're teaching. So again, I think, when we start looking at it, and I see Lady Yukita Hall said something so powerful that you can't teach what you don't know. And that's the God-heaven truth. I'm somewhat of a nerd, but I don't understand calculus at all. I promise. So don't ask me about, hey, well, what? I don't know, and I don't want to know. So integrity is something also that we must make sure that we're teaching our children. Again, I put a post out there on Facebook probably a couple weeks ago. And this goes back to everything as it relates to programming, and realize that, let's just be honest, most parents, very few homes now have just where there's one parent working or and one parent at home with the children. Again, even with the coronavirus and things of that nature. But one of the things that I thought about was, and the post that I shared was, it said, why don't we get rid of the MTV show 16 and Pregnant, which glorifies teenage pregnancy? And why don't we start having programming that heralds kids that become entrepreneurs, that teaches children how to start a business? Why don't we have shows that actually lift them up? Why won't major networks pick up those type of things? Yeah, I don't care what it is, if they're building business, whatever the case may be. Why don't we have those kind of shows? And here we go again. If we leave our children right to the vices of the media, whether it be social media, program media, whatever the case may be, then guess what? Then our children now start to become the product of whoever it is that has their attention. And this is why I wanted to talk about that First Corinthians, where we talk about that transition from being a child to being an adult, from being a child to being a man, from being a young lady to being a woman. How do we bridge that transition? How do we make sure that our children effectively make it over? And this is where we as parents, we have to get back to community parenting. I cannot get mad, or should I say, I should not get mad if you see my child doing something wrong and you correct it. I should not be mad if you're instilling something in my child that's right and true. Now, because come on, let's just be honest. It's not about what you perceive to be right, but it's truth, right? Again, everybody always has their own viewpoint of something. But at the same time, if it's truth is going to stand at the end of the day. And when we encourage community parenting, I think that's when we can better help our children transition over. And here's the thing. Can we really afford to not help our children with this transition? How many more grown children can we stand in society? And what do I mean by grown children? Well, you see them. I mean, they don't want to work. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do the things that they need to do. That's right, Carl. Truth is truth only. And how can our society sustain the continuation of our children not making that transition from being a child to a man or to a woman? Again, still got a few minutes left. We'll wrap up here. 901-475-9355. There's that transition. And so to our graduates out there, what's your plan? And here's the thing. I kind of got way off, but one of the first things we teach, again, I'll just kind of go back to, is budgeting, money management. We need to teach our children the value of money. I can't tell you how many families I talk to that even now they have children and don't understand the value of a dollar. I can't tell you. And again, that doesn't make them bad people. It just means that they didn't know. But what we should want to do is make sure that our children don't go through that. So we should want our children to be empowered. We talk also about integrity and what it means for our children's word to mean something. Again, your bills being paid on time, things of that. Your word being your bond. You having a good name in the street. We've got to start teaching those kind of things. That helps that transition. And then at the end of the day, community. That's one of the things that we forget about, community. You know, I can recall growing up that if I was sitting down when grown folk came in the house, well, especially the elderly, come on here, I got up and I made sure that they were comfortable. If the elderly were around, you know, you made sure that you showed them respect. And that's one of the things I want to talk about as we get ready to get out of here. Humility goes before honor, you know. And one thing about being humble is that you realize I can learn a lesson from just about anybody. It could be a lesson of what to do, but it can also be a lesson of what not to do. And again, it's not so much about whether I'm in the judgment seat about whether it's right or wrong, but I understand that humility brings honor. It goes before honor. And as a parent, that's one thing that I've tried to teach. We try to teach our children to be humble. Again, and I just told them straight, y'all ain't rich. Y'all actually broke. I said, your mother and I, we doing pretty good. And we ain't rich, but we doing all right. But I'm like, y'all broke. Y'all don't have anything. So y'all can't look down on nobody else. Just because we take care of y'all, y'all can't look down on nobody else. And we have to get back to more of that. And making sure that people understand that as Paul said, if it had not been for the grace of God, there go I. It was nothing but God's grace that, you know, they have a nice roof that's over their head, that they don't miss any meal, that they actually get to choose, you know, what they want to eat, and that we can actually eat out a couple times a week if we want to. You get what I'm saying? And so they have to understand that humility goes before honor. Don't you get out there and start thinking you know everything, you can't be taught anything, because I can promise you, you may be a big fish in a little pond as it relates to graduating. However, when you get out there to that real world, that real gonna punch you square in the mouth. It's gonna punch you square in the mouth. And so the best thing to do is to go out there and humble yourself. Now, I'm not saying be someone's flunky, but be willing to be taught. Be willing to learn. If you're going to college, do what you're supposed to do. I want to encourage you, do what you're supposed to do the first go round. God Almighty, I can't tell you how it will be just that much more beneficial if you just do what you're supposed to do. Don't chase after what folk are saying. Don't chase after the fact of what folk are trying to get you to do. But get your lesson. Do what you're supposed to do. If you're not going to college, if you're going to get you a job, listen, don't go out there and have your phone up in your hand all the time. Get out there and learn what you are supposed to do. That's right, mother. Humility is a characteristic of kingdom citizens. Absolutely. If you're going on that job, get out there and learn what you're supposed to learn. Don't get with that crowd like, man, I done been out here for all these years. Them folk ain't gonna do nothing. Get away from them folk. It's your boy, Pastor Rob. I wouldn't tell you nothing more. Get away from them folks. Listen, we got 1 minute left, and I'm gonna try to get this here. The last thing I want to say is understand this. Strength fades. However, it transitions to wisdom if you'll allow it. What that means, you ain't gonna always be young. You ain't gonna always be able to do what you think you can do, what you can do right now. So now is the time to gain wisdom, to embrace wisdom, to know wisdom, to learn wisdom, to grow in wisdom, so that as you get older, you can be a lot further along than a lot of other people will. And overcome peer pressure. Do not allow somebody to put you in a trick bag. Do not, man, all the cool kids doing, or this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. Don't do those things. But listen, it's your boy, Pastor Rod, Lady Hickman. That's our time. We love you all so much. It is such a pleasure, such a joy. Again, our partner here, U.S. Country, U.S. 51 Country, 93.5 is Kingdom Perspective. God bless you, and y'all have a great week. God bless.